Hello, I'm Ben Buddy Slack, and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project. The Swan Song Project is a charity that helps people facing the end of their lives to write and record their own original songs. I've been doing a series of interviews with songwriters where I ask them to share with us one of their songs, tell them a little bit about how they wrote it, then also share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful to new aspiring songwriters, and then also tell us a little bit about a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. This episode features Tim Holehouse, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, today I'm here with Tim Holehouse. Thanks for joining me, Tim.
Hi, nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise. It's I'm looking forward to chatting songwriting with you for a little while. So if any of you have seen these interviews before, do them in three sections. First, we're gonna have one of my guests' songs, and then we'll have a little chat about how they wrote that. Then section two, Tim's going to share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful for new songwriters. And then section three, we're going to talk about a song that's meaningful to Tim in some way relating to bereavement. So I'm going to ask Tim to introduce his song, and then I'll edit the video into that. So what song of yours have you chosen for us, Tim?
We've done Gainesville City Limits.
Sun beats down. I'm away from the madding crowd, so I turn faces strange right now. I'm in Gainesville City Limits. I'm in Gainesville City Limits. I'm in Gainesville City Limits. People can be so good and nice, you see. They'll pick you up there and then. 'Cause a friend in need's a friend indeed. I'm in Gainesville City Limits. I'm in Gainesville City Limits. I'm in Gainesville City Limits. Of the night, yeah, I know it's not my time, 'cause I got friends slendering, so I turn faces strange, and I touch those walls again. I'm in Gainesville City Limits. 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 Tonight.
Okay, great stuff. That was Gainesborough City Limits by Tim Holehouse. So what can you tell us about writing that one, Tim?
So that song, actually probably one of the quickest songs I've ever written. Genuinely one of the quickest songs. And it all came about, I was playing a festival called The Fest in Gainesville. It's a huge punk rock festival. It's like 400 acts play.
Nice.
Fingers crossed I'm playing it this year, fingers crossed. I'm on the bill, but it's just sort of, yeah, if it's going to happen.
When's it meant to be?
It's meant to be the end of October, so
Okay, so maybe.
a while off. So yeah, I mean, Rebellion's just gone, but it's like we are all going month by month, aren't we, at the moment? So, but anyway, I was asked to play the fest. It was my first one. I had no idea because I knew that the centre of it was round the Holiday Inn, so I just assumed all the acts got a room in the Holiday Inn. So I catch a megabus from Atlanta, where I was previously, to Gainesville, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've not heard anything about the accommodation. But I guess you just kind of rock up to the Holiday Inn and they give you a key. And I got in at 4 a.m. or something. And there's another guy with me, and he hasn't got anywhere to stay either because it's 4 a.m. And he's like, no, the bands don't get like hotel room. You've got to find your own sort of place. I'm like, oh shit, I haven't sorted anything. Huge festival taking over the entire town. It's like next to impossible. So we spent the first night, me and this guy Ryan, who's now become quite a good friend of mine. So we spent the first night in the Krispy Kreme donut factory. Just testing. They were giving us. They must have felt sorry for us. They were testing all their new donut flavors on it, and that
sounds like a dream come true.
Until about sort of 8 a.m. or something.
How did that come about? How did you meet the factory people?
Well, he said it's the only place that they've got like a little shop or cafe bit at the front of the shop of the factory. So it's like, oh yeah, it's about the only thing that's open 24 hours. So let's go there. So because he'd been before. And so we're just sort of drinking coffee and trying all these donuts. So we're sugar rich.
Sounds like a dream for me.
It was great. But then we once I'd sort of got through the sign-in process around sort of 10 o'clock, I just hit that sort of crash of sugar and caffeine's worn off, hit a bit of a crash. But I'd already signed in my pass. So I went up to the pool because there was supposed to be a pool party to open the festival up in the Holiday Inn. So I found a sun lounger in the shade, fell asleep, didn't I? So I was like, I'll just have a quick nap. It's like somewhere about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my housemate Pippa, who's in the awesome band The Werecats, and a French friend of mine are all surrounding me, like trying to wake me up because I've gone bright red. I've got sunburnt. It's 42 degrees in Gainesville, Florida, even in October. So I'm bright red. I've got dehydration and like sunstroke, and I've got to play that evening. So they all rallied round and found me this motel room for like $20 for 2 nights in the city limits of Gainesville, and then put me in a taxi and sort of sent me out there, which was really sweet of them. It was such a nice friend thing to do. They really looked after me. I got to the hotel, jumped in an ice bath, got myself together. I did look like a Care Bear when I played the festival show, but yeah, I went out, played my show. Then the next morning I woke up and I just had this song was in my head, like literally just, I wanted to write about the whole experience. So in this motel, so it was kind of like almost wrote itself in a motel on the edge of town. Well, I was in the city limits, so Gainesville city limits. Sitting there in this hotel, and then just like singing about friendship and you know the situation I was in, and the chords are just really lazy chords. They're not so it's like A minor, an open F chord. It's bar capo 2, but it's A minor F, and then it's like a E, but with just 2 fingers, like on the C. It's a C E type chord. I think it's some sort of suspended E, but it was just my laziness and not wanting to move my finger. And then like the chorus is C to G, and again I just don't move my finger off the C, and I just put a little like flourish thing with my little finger on just to make it sound a bit fancy.
Yeah.
And it was just like that, and it was like, oh, these chords work, yeah, that'll do. And it was the whole song was just all about friendship and how they'd looked after me, and just I had a slight panic attack in the middle of the night. So it's just literally about a day in Gainesville city limits motel. That's it. That was all I wrote about, and some sort of chords that I threw together. And yeah, it's been one of my most popular songs ever.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how that works out sometimes? Yeah. Is that how, do you often write quickly, or do you write slower usually, or is...
Yeah, there's sometimes some things just come to you, I think. There's another one called Good Morning, Mr. Vampire, which I literally wrote on a car journey after my friend's son woke me up shouting, Good Morning, Mr. Vampire. It's another one of the really popular ones. And Broken Bones, which is another fairly quick written one. I did put more music to it, and art and layers to it later, but it was pretty much written when I broke my wrist and I couldn't really play properly, so I just wrote about having a broken arm, but made it sound a bit more Tom Waitsy and like mysterious. And it was just like literally 4 notes on a bass guitar, because I was just playing the bass guitar with the one hand that worked. So
sometimes those limitations make interesting things, don't they? If you can't if you don't have the access. I was talking to someone yesterday about like junk shop instruments and those kind of things, and like if you got like an instrument which if you can't play your instrument in the way you normally would, it makes you be a bit more creative in finding a way of making a song from it.
Yeah, even in this lockdown, I mean, I've been limited with what I've got. I mean, I found a theremin in the cupboard.
Oh, nice.
And some junk instruments as well, and sort of like toy instruments and things. And then I've been doing some MIDI stuff. Obviously, I've got my guitars with me, but I've limited recording other than MIDI, so I've been doing some stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I write a lot, so sometimes I really feel like I take ages on stuff. Some stuff I'll go back to, some stuff will just get thrown away. But I try to write a song or create something every day if possible. I took that idea really off of David Lynch. David Lynch he says he likes to create something every day, if at all possible, in some sort of form. So whether it be like a video or an idea for a picture or music or just some lyrics, I try to do something like that every day. It's not always feasible. I mean, if you're traveling as much as I do, sometimes it can be really, really hard. You're sort of driving 500 kilometers or something, and then, you've got to throw all the gear in and get ready and play. And then by the time you play, you have a drink, you're ready to go to sleep.
Yeah. But yeah, it's great practice if you when you can keep it up, isn't it? It's I'm sure that pays off tremendously. Great stuff. Yes,
I've got files and files of stuff like that, like stuff I've written, and I've actually this like last few weeks I've actually been going through some hard drives and going, that's awful, just throw that way.
That's good for having the time sometimes to go through it as well. That's what I found. Like I was kind of stockpiling books, but then I would find the time to actually go back and look through them again and like you say, sort out if any of it's worth keeping or if it's for the bin. Yeah. Great stuff. So let's move into section 2 now. So this is where I ask for a songwriting tip that might be useful for new aspiring songwriters. So what would your tip be for us, Tim?
My biggest one would probably be write about what you know. Write about your experience. I always try and write in that way, sort of right from my perspective. Or something that I know about. I do sometimes work on works of fiction. I definitely haven't been to the electric chair. I've got a song about the electric chair, but writing about sort of my own experiences, and that's why a lot of my songs are based on things that happened to me on the road. Because that's you. I mean, I couldn't sing about whatever Taylor Swift sings about or what Frank Turner sings about, because I'm not Frank Turner, I'm not Taylor Swift, I'm certainly not Jay-Z or something. I can sing about growing up in the hood.
Yeah.
That wasn't me. I grew up in the suburbs of Portsmouth, so I think it wouldn't be true to myself. You can sort of certainly write about things that fictional things that you're interested in, like books you've read, and like, I read Albert Camus' The Plague, and this sounds really, I'd like to write something around this idea. I was watching a thing yesterday about Kate Bush writing Wuthering Heights. It's quite interesting. She hadn't actually read the book. But she'd seen a movie of Wuthering Heights on the TV that night, and they needed a song, and she kind of put it together, and it was her biggest hit. So, yeah, there's sort of certain ways of writing, but I tend to find that being true to yourself is very, very important.
Yeah, that's a really good one, Tim. Thanks for that. Good advice. I think a lot of time with early songwriters, there's a temptation to try and write to sound like like a particular songwriter that you like. And again, it's like it's a fine line because there's like a balance of like pulling out someone's style but not copying it in a way. So like you mentioned Tom Waits there is another one of my heroes of like wanting to write, like you get inspired by him but you're not trying to be him in a way. You're trying to take the influence but still make it your own in a way. It's tricky thing to, I think when people start out, it's a tricky thing to balance, isn't it? But then I think eventually you find your voice, but you've got to try and
finding
hold
your
of that
voice as well is also like what you're good at. Like I've found that people compare me to Tom Waits, but actually it was kind of funny when I first started. I didn't actually know Tom Waits at all. I was a guy who liked blues and had been in metal bands, and it was easier for me to sing in a gruff voice than try and sing all nice because I can't sing nice. Ruined my voice through years of being in hardcore metal bands. So there was no way I was going to sing like, Chris Martin from Coldplay. That just wasn't going to happen. But it was funny because I was like, oh yeah, you sound like Tom Waits. And actually it was my partner who played me some of his stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, you totally sound like Tom Waits. I'm like, oh, right. But I thought in my head, he was an actor who did some music like Vincent Gallo. And it's actually totally the other way around. So yeah, I mean, I love him now, but then now it's like a little conscious thing of when I do something, it can be like, is this a bit too much like Tom Waits?
Yeah, things to be wary of. Yeah, great stuff. Yes, thanks for that, Tim. So let's go into the third section now. This is where I ask my guests tell us about a song that's meaningful to them, relating to bereavement in some way. And what I do here is I leave a link for the song in the description. So if you're watching this video at home, you want to listen to the song, if you're not familiar with it already, you can look in the description and there'll be a link to it on YouTube where you can go listen to it and come back and we'll have a chat about it. So what song did you choose for us here, Tim?
I chose In My Life by the Beatles because I think it was only about 2 weeks ago today. It was my auntie's funeral. She lost her 5-year fight with cancer. And this was played at her funeral. She was a big music fan. She's probably like one of the people most responsible for getting me into music in general anyway. She was like a huge music fan, and we lived with her for about 6 months when my dad was based in Kenya when we were I must have been about 6 or something, and my sister was about 4. And we lived in Plymouth with her, and she would sort of play me different music, and in fact her father as well was another one. My granddad also would play me Johnny Cash and stuff back when he was alive. So he played me like the sort of rockabilly and rock and roll stuff, and then my auntie was like really into the Beatles and the Kinks and Queen and stuff like that, like sort of pop rock, I guess you'd call it. And yeah, she passed away sadly. Obviously with everything that's happened, we couldn't go to the funeral, so I saw it on the internet. And my cousins chose this as one of her favourite songs, which it really summed her up. Actually, I thought it was a really, really, really fitting tribute. I thought they did really, really well with this sort of song.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear about such a recent loss for you, Tim. And yeah, thanks for sharing it with us. It's a beautiful song. And I was just thinking, you talking about that, how nice it is, those relationships, particularly as musicians, I guess. I mean, it's the same for most people, but the people in our lives who introduce you to certain types of music, how big a factor that plays in your development as a musician, having those people who were the first ones to introduce you to certain artists. And also, you mentioned about Johnny Cash coming with that. So you probably heard Johnny Cash's version of In My Life. Have you heard that?
I haven't actually. No, I didn't know he'd done that. I knew he did like quite a lot of the covers, because I know he did. He even did like some really obscure stuff. Well, certainly obscure to a lot of people. He did "Spiritual" by the band Spain in the American recordings, and I guess although in his certain genre, Bonnie Prince Billy is a big artist.
Yeah,
he did "I See a Darkness," but I mean, I guess your average Johnny Cash fan wouldn't know Bonnie Prince Billy.
Yeah. I think it's on the same album as her. Actually, I think it's American 3. There's a version of In My Life. I think it's that one.
I don't have that one. That's the one I don't. I think I've got Solitary Man. I'd have to rummage through my CD.
But yeah, I recommend it. It's good. It's good. It's a powerful version of it. But yeah, it's a beautiful song, isn't it? It's and yeah, very fitting for a funeral. You mentioned not being able to go and watching it online. Do you mind asking what that was like, seeing the
It's
online?
definitely surreal, sort of sitting in. I got all dressed up still. I put proper trousers on and socks and shoes, and dressed up like I was going, because I felt it was something you kind of had to do. But yeah, it was. I think it was more frustrating because I'm not particularly great at funerals anyway. I've only been to a couple in my life just because I get a bit anxious and stuff. But my mum, I think, was more frustrated that she couldn't get there. She couldn't get down to Plymouth. She was down in Dorset, but there's just no way they could have travelled. And I think it was more frustrating to her. And I phoned her up afterwards because it was her sister. Chat to her afterwards. So it was what it was. I think that's just kind of the way I've taken it. But yeah, certainly like the whole family sort of phoned each other and everybody chatted and stuff and that. So yeah, I guess that's kind of it's surreal. It's definitely surreal doing everything, but I'm getting more and more used to things being surreal at this moment in time.
Yeah.
Like gigs now are just online live streams and stuff.
Yeah.
And that, so yeah, it's been an interesting time to be around in, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely a very strange time, and yeah, I'm glad that you're all keeping in touch, and I hope you and all the family are doing all right with it all, because it was a very tough time for a lot of people dealing with losses during this, and obviously not being able to go to funerals and things. So
yeah, I've lost a friend as well, a friend of mine. In fact, he mixed and mastered my first album, a guy called Scott Taylor, who used to be in the band Then Jericho.
Okay.
No, he passed away as well. Again, another 5-year fight with cancer, and just finally, it's timing was bad, so none of us could go to that either. So yeah, he mixed and mastered my first ever solo album. So that was crazy. I recorded it all on a 4-track.
Yeah.
And I had all these like 4-track tapes, and Scott was like, "We'll just bring the 4-track round, and we'll just file it all into my." He had a reel-to-reel proper sort of 2-inch tape job, mixing studio in his house, and he mixed and mastered it all, and charged me a bottle of vodka for it.
It's good rates for mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining me, Tim. I appreciate your time. And yeah, I'll tag your pages and stuff in all this so people can follow you.
Oh, yeah.
Have you got any live streams coming up? Are you doing regular ones?
Yes, I have one on the 19th for a place called Demos in Germany, which I believe is on Twitch, which is fairly new to me.
I've not tried Twitch yet. I've not got onto that one.
And then on Facebook, I have one for Cult DIY in Yeovil on the 25th, and one for raising funds for Le Pub in Newport. And that's the 30th, I believe, of May. So those are the ones I've got coming up. But yeah, I've been doing these quite a lot of these.
Good stuff. Yeah, so anyone watching wants to follow Tim, you can, I'll tag him in the description. Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back with another episode soon. Thanks for joining me, Tim.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.